up running as well, so he could run behind his brother when he was home for holidays and all summer long. His brother slapped on Old Spice some mornings, and then would offer Jim the little white bottle to try out too. "It's not the best, Squirt," Stephen would say, slapping the stuff around Jim's neck. "But the girls seem to like it fine." "Yeah," Jim would say. When Stephen began dating, Jim would try to tag along for as much of the afternoon or evening as he could. And sometimes Stephen would even let him ride along in the back seat when he took one of his many girlfriends out to the movies, as long as the movie was PG. Some of the girls told him how cute he was, and then told Stephen he was even cuter for dragging his baby brother with him. And Jim would sit in the dark movie theater, not even caring what the movie was, because Stephen would sit next to him and let him hold the big popcorn and the gigantic cup of Coke, and didn't even act embarrassed when other friends of his from school ran into him on a date with his girlfriend and little brother. It was like that with the two of them. Jim was Squirt, and Stephen was Big Bro, which sometimes became Big Bear. And if you had ever told Jim that his brother might one day never come home again, he would have sworn you were the biggest and meanest liar on the face of the whole wide world. When Jim was only 11, something unusual happened to him. This was back when he lived in what he later came to think of as the big house on the hill in a town called Bronxville, just outside New York City. Contrary to its name, with associations with the Bronx in the city, Bronxville was a 1-square-mile showplace village of beautiful houses and perfectly manicured lawns. Jim's family was not considered wealthy by Bronxville standards, and the house, despite Jim's later memories of it, was not, in fact, very big. But to that little boy, it was a mansion of many rooms, and he had grown up in the house knowing his father and mother would always make sure the heat was turned up to keep him warm in the winter, and that there would always be someone to take care of him when he was lonely or scared. His knowledge of the world up to that point was drawn from eavesdropping on his parents and their friends conversing over drinks in the living room, mentioning things that seemed sophisticated to him, and of course what he learned from his brother, Stephen, the one he looked up to the most. His older brother was a junior in a faraway high school, the one their dad had once attended. Stephen came home during the winter holidays to spend as much time with his little brother as possible, or so Jim felt. And the something unusual that happened to Jim happened during one of those bleak winter nights. Stephen came to his room, dressed in his usual khakis and starchy cotton shirt, a striped blue and white tie falling in its knot at his collar, his prep school look. He had his big green down jacket in his arms like a baby. A dusting of snow clung to his hair and melted off the lime green rubber of his Eddie Bauer duck shoes. Jim sat up in bed, setting down the comic book he'd been reading way past his bedtime, and said hi to his older brother. The clock was ticking too loudly. Stephen had given the alarm clock to him for Christmas the previous week, but if Jim wound it too tight, which he did, the ticking was almost like someone running up an echoing staircase. Jim glanced at the clock. It was nearly 1 a.m. "I didn't think you'd be home yet." He looked back at his older brother. Stephen offered that lopsided smile that he usually reserved for occasions of goofy misfortune, like when Jim had forgotten and left the sprinklers running too long, turning the lawn to mush, or the time that a girl kissed Stephen years before and had run to tell Jim that it was his first kiss ever. Stephen said, "Squirt, don't let the bastards get you down." And Jim gave a raspberry in reply, because their father had been getting after Stephen to tone down his language in front of his younger brother. "How you going to make your big bro proud?" "By doing the best I can." "Good," Stephen said. "Oh, and whatever you do, just remember that every secret was meant to be told, and every door was meant to be opened." "Okay," Jim said sleepily, not understanding any of this. As his